Hello, hi, welcome all. I know that all of them familiar with the concept of colonialism. In the previous session, I was mainly concerned with the various aspects of colonialism. Therefore, I do not intend to go to the theory of this colonialism and its establishment. Today, in this session, mainly discuss about how this colonialism influenced in Asian countries. Let us analyze how this colonialism affected the Asian countries. During the period of 15th century, the European powers extended their control over the countries of Asia and Africa. The outbreak of this industrial revolution in Britain and its subsequent spread over the Western Europe resulted in the growing demand for raw materials and new markets. From that period, the European merchants of the early centuries had come to Asiatic countries, particularly for trade. The process of this colonization attained a remarkable growth during the subsequent period and reached its climax by the end of the 19th century. The existing political conditions give a great opportunities to the foreigners to establish their sway over the native countries. From at that time, the political disunity of the country and internal rivalry among the native states attracted the attention of the foreign powers. The Western powers seized the sovereignty of the colonies and imposed their hegemony over them either by force or by treaty. The two important countries of the Iberian Peninsula, especially the Portugal and Spain, took the lead in the overseas trade in the 16th century. As we know that in 1497, the Portugal king Emmanuel first sent the navigator Vasco da Gama to find the sea route to India through the Cape of Good Hope at the southern tip of Africa. Gama reached the port of Calicut at Malabar coast on June 18, 1498 and he returned to Lisbon in 1499. This was considered as the turning point in the history of colonialism in Asia. Then in this trade was we can consider as a highly profitable one. The Portuguese started to set up a trading empire in Indian Ocean as a part of these trading activities. They control major sea route between India, Middle East and Southeast Asia. After that, they made Goa as their own capital of India. The city became the important European settlement. Then the Portuguese supremacy over the Indian Ocean lasted only for 100 years. But it was a tremendous influence in the history of the trading contacts with the East and West. As we can see that the Portuguese were the quickest to exploit the commercial opportunities of the new lands. Slowly, they acquired a dominant space in the East. They obtained and built the city of Goa as the capital of Portuguese Empire in the East. And they tried to extend their power over Asian countries such as Mauritius, Java, Sumatra, Malacca, and they also marked their imprint in Japan and China. Then from at that period, the Spaniards also followed the same kind of policy and they established their own colonies. They occupied Philippines in 1542 and later they founded the city of Manila as its capital. As we know that by the end of the 16th century, both Portugal and Spain began to lose their colonial superiority. The period between 1600 to 1763 witnessed the surpassing of this Portugal and Spain by the power of northwestern Europe, especially Holland, France and England. During that period, Dutch also engaged a major role of this colonial intervention. They penetrated different parts of Asia and Africa. The Dutch also established trade contacts with China, Japan, and India. But it was not last long. The Dutch could not survive the competition of other European powers. Their rivalry with the French and English traders resulted in the loss of their trading centers, and the trade gradually fell into the hands of the Britishers. During that time, the French colonial policy in the New World was based on the principle of colonial compact. The French attempted to establish their hegemony both in East and West. The company acquired Pondicherry, Goa, the Daman and Diu, and other parts of India. As a part of these movements, the English East India Company established its domination over the India. The British East India Company founded in 1600. As we know that the arrival of British in India was unwelcome to the Portuguese. And the Britishers had developed three important independent presidencies in India. The first presidency, which is located at Madras, now the place is known as Chennai. Then second one at Bombay, now the place also renamed it Mumbai. And third one, Calcutta presidency, now which is the place is known as Kolkata. Then and each of these places considered as the important trading ports in India. Then after the British intervention in India, we can see a lot of political changes in the history of Indian subcontinent. Then the historians regarded as the year of 1757 as the starting point of the history of British Empire in India. The Battle of Plassey, the war fought between the Nawab of Bengal and British East India Company. The Sirajuddin Daula as the Nawab of Bengal and the British East India Company. After that, the British East India Company take control of the eastern part of Indian subcontinent. Slowly, they gained the control over the Indian politics and economy. After that, India had witnessed a lot of historical battle to gain over the dominance of British power in India. The Battle of Buxar, the Anglo-Mysore War and Carnatic War are the best example for this European intervention in India. In addition with that, during this period, the Indian Ocean region was the major center of commercial and mercantile activities. One of the prominent historian, Kenneth Macpherson, in his work The Indian Ocean, point out that the existence of the distinctive Indian Ocean world constituted by trade link and commercial networks. This process laid the foundation of European domination of Indian Ocean during the 18th century. We have already mentioned about the arrival of the Portuguese in the Indian Ocean in 1498, revealed the Indian Ocean world to Europe. Then the process of this maritime intervention broke its insularity and laid the foundation for its later integration with the capitalist global economy. The Portuguese established the first European trade network in Indian Ocean through their commercial organization, which is we have to known as Estado da India. Then from the early 17th century, the Portuguese domination over the Indian Ocean was threatened by other European powers such as Dutch and English. At that time, Indian Ocean became the sphere of conflict, and eventually the Portuguese lost their commercial domination. At the meantime, due to the naval strength of England, could embark a policy of conquest throughout the India. Another great Asian country China began to feel the impact of European colonialism when the Portuguese merchant opened trade with Canton in 1554. But the colonialism in China was not directly, we cannot feel directly. Chinese were resisting in continuously for a long period of time. The Portuguese established a commercial base at Macau in 1557. After that, the arrival of Dutch and the English, the Portuguese monopoly over the Chinese trade was challenged. Let us see how did these Chinese fell indirectly into the control of Europeans. We know that China was the most populated country like India. China is producing silk and they were able to send silk in other part of the world. Along with that, the Chinese government imposed many restrictions on European trade and both the Dutch and English were denied official permission to conduct the trade. Then the Dutch and English therefore conducted on irregular trade with China for a long period of time. By the mid 18th century, the Chinese opened up the trade to all countries. However, it was confined only to Canton and Macau. The historical event known as the Opium War, actually the war fought between the two times. The first battle which was conducted in the year of 1839 to 1842. Then again the another battle which was conducted in the year of 1857 to 58. Finally, the China was defeated England. After that, the China was not directly under the control of Europeans. Then another great nation, Japan. The early relations with Japan and the West began with the arrival of Portuguese in the 16th century. This initial contact was followed by a regular visit by the Portuguese traders who discovered that the rich profits could be made in commerce between Japan and China. In the early decades of the 17th century, the Dutch and the British traders were active in Japan along with the Portuguese. The rivalry among the European powers and the missionary activities posed many challenges to the Japanese government. This was used the great opportunity to expel the Europeans from Japan. The Japanese government sealed their island against the Westerners from 17th century onwards and they strictly followed the policy of isolation. So we can see clearly understand that the Japan was the only Asian country to escape colonialism from the West. When we compared with this colonial intervention in Japan, China and India, as the situation of India is more worse. The colonialism led to major changes in the socio-economic and political conditions of India. The merits and the demerits of colonialism can be seen in different levels such as culture, education, communication, politics, etc. The impact of this colonialism is not discussed here, and it is discussed in details in the subsequent sessions. Thank you very much.